The World War II heat brick that beat winter, and why preppers still swear by it today. Some survival stories don't begin with explosions or battles. Some begin with silence, the kind that freezes the air, stiffens metal, and steals the warmth right out of your bones. In the last brutal winters of World War II, men learned quickly that bravery alone couldn't stop frostbite. Courage didn't thaw frozen boots. Grit didn't keep rifles from locking solid. What saved lives wasn't always a weapon. Sometimes it was a block of unassuming stone, a heat brick so effective that soldiers swore it was the only thing standing between them and the grave. And today, that forgotten wartime tech might be the smartest low-tech survival tool you can use when the grid goes down. World War II proved something we often forget in the age of gadgets. When the temperature plummets and the lights go out, high-tech doesn't matter. Physics does. On the Eastern Front, temperatures plunged low enough to turn machine oil into sludge. Engines refused to start. Fire was dangerous because smoke revealed your position. Fuel was scarce, but men still had to survive. That's where the heat brick earned its legend. A simple slab of dense material heated during the day and carried into the night, radiating life-saving warmth long after every visible flame was gone. It worked because it was built on one principle older than electricity: thermal mass. The soldiers didn't call it that. They just knew the brick stayed warm. But, the science is solid. Dense materials like refractory clay and volcanic ash hold on to heat the way a battery holds power. The brick absorbed a blast of heat, stored it in its heavy mass, and then released it slowly and safely over hours. No fire, no smoke, no fuel. In airtight bunkers where one spark could give away a position or choke a squad with carbon monoxide, this was a survival miracle. These weren't fragile ceramic blocks either. Engineers during the war mixed in iron oxide and high-heat mineral blends to create a material that wouldn't crack under intense temperatures. Heat it to a few hundred degrees Fahrenheit near a stove or engine exhaust, and it turned into a silent, steady radiator. Heavy, yes, but dependable. In well-insulated dugouts, 1 or 2 large bricks could keep a small space from freezing through the night. Medics used them to warm field kits. Officers used them to keep maps pliable. Soldiers tucked them under blankets or wrapped them in wool to slow heat loss and make them last even longer. You might think, what does a wartime brick from 1944 have to do with survival today? Everything. Because the physics hasn't changed. Modern heating systems fail. The winter grid isn't guaranteed. Storms knock out power, fuel prices spike, and not everyone has a wood stove or generator. But a thermal mass heat source, simple, silent, low-tech, still works exactly the way it did for those soldiers facing the deadliest winters of the war. The difference is that today, anyone can build one. This is passive heat banking. You store heat when you have energy available, then release it slowly after the power fails. And unlike electric blankets or constant fuel burners, a thermal brick doesn't need a single watt once it's charged. It also doesn't risk setting your shelter on fire. That's a big part of why this method still matters. Not every survival solution should rely on flame or machinery. Some should rely on physics and planning, exactly what those wartime engineers understood. For modern survivalists, fire bricks, concrete blocks, and dense stones like soapstone work incredibly well. The key is simple. The heavier the brick, the longer it stays warm. Preppers today build small heat banks around wood stoves, stacking bricks to absorb heat during the burn. Hours after the fire dies, those bricks still radiate warmth. In a blackout, you can do the same thing even without a stove. Heat fire bricks in your oven while power is available. Place them near a propane heater during the day. Charge them with whatever heat source you have while conditions are safe. Once warmed, move them to the room or shelter where you'll be resting. Insulated spaces work best, the same way bunkers did back in the war. Wrap the brick in a few layers of thick fabric or place it inside a small insulated box if you want the heat to last all night. And treat the brick with respect. Even passive heat can burn if mishandled. Always keep it off plastic surfaces, away from flammable materials, and handle it with gloves or thick cloth until it cools enough to be safe. What you're really creating is your own portable thermal battery, not high-tech, not complicated, but real, reliable, proven in one of the harshest environments humans have ever fought in. When the world's most powerful armies were frozen in place, it was these heat bricks that made nights bearable. They kept frostbite at bay. They saved fuel for moments when it actually mattered. And most importantly, they offered heat without giving away positions or compromising safety. Those soldiers didn't think they were inventing survival gear for a YouTube channel 80 years in the future. They were just trying to stay alive. But their solution works just as well for anyone today who understands the value of simple, enduring, physics-driven prepping. You don't need a bunker. You don't need a war. You just need the foresight to store heat before you need it, and the right materials to hold it long enough to matter. That's the power of forgotten wartime tech. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't futuristic. It was efficient. It was field-tested. And it was built to save lives when nothing else could. That's why it belongs in your modern survival playbook, right beside the tools and gear we depend on today. If you're serious about staying warm when the grid goes down, take a lesson from the men who had no choice but to master winter. Build your own thermal mass system. Heat it when you can. Let it work for you when you can't. And if you want more hidden history, lost survival secrets, and real-world prepping knowledge, make sure you subscribe to History's Survival Code and share this with someone who needs it. The old ways aren't gone. They're just waiting to be rediscovered.